You will never expect this, but turns out Ubisoft, the 99.9 female-led company full of wokeness, is using Sweet Baby Inc. to make their games better. Yeah, shocking.
Ubisoft is not using bots to defend themselves, they're using Sweet Baby Inc. Park Place reports Japanese consultant used by Ubisoft and the New York Times to attack gamers over AC Shadows was actually a Sweet Baby Inc. employee. It's gotta be.
You can't make this up at this point. This just writes itself.
Some of the worst things you could do to defend yourself as a company, using bots and using Sweet Baby Inc. Like, what are they thinking? In a most recent hit piece by the New York Times that appears to have been done in collaboration with Ubisoft, the outlet's Zachary Small cited a so-called Japanese consultant and translator who claimed that criticism of the game was being done by individuals in the West using translators, and that the Japanese people were not upset with how the game not only featured Yasuke as a protagonist, but that he's depicted as a samurai. Bro, people in
We literally have seen people from Japan absolutely hating the living hell out of this, okay? You can't gaslight the people who already know what's happening. Maybe if it's your first year on the internet, maybe this is gonna work. But if you have even 2 functioning brain cells, which is a lot these days, you're gonna see through the fog.
Japan literally made a song that mocks AC Shadows that in only 2 months has already gotten nearly 3 million views. And of course, all over the internet, plenty of Japanese people have also criticized Ubisoft, plenty of videos, plenty of posts all over social media, etc, etc. And these
Now, to be fair, are there people who are not Japanese who are doing this? Yes. But not a lot of them, because they probably have better things to do.
bootlickers really want to try and say that it's all just Westerners using translators. They then write about Hashimoto, who, as you can see here, was listed as a freelance narrative design consultant over at Sweet Baby Inc. And they say Hashimoto told the New York Times, quote, "It was people in the West who were upset with seeing Yasuke as a samurai." Small added, Small, for those that don't know, is the journalist behind said New York Times article. They say, Small added that Hashimoto explained, quote, that many of the negative online comments written in Japanese appear to have been roughly translated from English. The narrative that Hashimoto, Small, and Ubisoft were trying to spin was outrageous to begin with, given that Small had written just 2 paragraphs ahead of his citation of Hashimoto that Ubisoft attempted to assume concerns about the game's authenticity, apologizing in a lengthy statement for promotional materials that it said had bothered some Japanese audiences. Another contradiction there.
Dude, people who actually know Japanese history, real Japanese and whatnot, we watched this happen. Those who know about Japan's history and whatnot and are from Japan, they're calling out like one thing after another that's wrong and inaccurate about this game. If Ubisoft spend money consulting with some Japanese historian, it was definitely some just, overweight woke rando.
Even before this, Small noted, the inclusion of Yasuke was the primary complaint. But observers also pointed to the presence of Chinese architecture and period inappropriate flags. The controversy became so heated that a small right-wing political party in Japan formally asked the government to comment on what is considered historical inaccuracies. If it was just Western people, why was a Japanese political party requesting an investigation into the game, and why did Ubisoft issue a so-called apology to Japanese gamers? Nevertheless, it's been discovered that
Dude, Ubisoft is gonna get so destroyed when this game launches because they have failure after failure at this point. Watch Dogs, a completely dead franchise at this point. Wokeified to the absolute the extent, okay? Skull and Bones, garbage. Not even mentioning all the, classic Ubisoft wokeisms in there. And now we had Star Wars Outlaws. An absolute disaster, needless to say, that undersold already. They already lowered the estimates, but that wasn't even enough. And, Assassin's Creed Shadows is probably going to be their biggest disaster. And it's happening. No one's buying this crap.
Hashimoto was actually an employee of Sweet Baby Inc. from February 2020 to April 2023, as noted by his own LinkedIn profile.
Nice.
Not only is Hashimoto a former employee of Sweet Baby Inc., but he's an activist journalist whose articles are featured at Polygon, Siliconera, Them, and multiple outlets owned by Gamers Group. Mark Kern, aka Grums, shared one article Hashimoto wrote on Medium where he criticized Animal Crossing New Horizons by acknowledging Japan's history of colonial rule. You gotta be kidding me. This dude actually got pressed by Animal Crossing, saying it's like a colonizer game. Are these people always so...
everything is a colonization game reference or something. Everything is racist. Everything is sexist. Famous words. Famous last words. I think she's doing fine, though, in life, which is the saddest part. Hey, if there's a market, there's a seller.
So friggin' lame and weird. Earlier this year, Hashimoto also wrote an article at Them titled, "How Gay Can You Be in Dragon's Dogma 2? An Investigation." What the frick? What am I reading here, man?
Well, now we know that you can have surgery scars because reasons. And you cannot make good-looking women in this game because that's obviously prohibited. Yeah, it is what it is. Pretty sad.
It is unsurprising that Ubisoft and the New York Times would use Hashimoto as a so-called expert to attack gamers. It's an old play the Access Media uses. For example, Amazon Prime previously used this play in the lead up to release The Lord of the Rings of Power Season 1. However, instead of using the New York Times, Amazon went to Vanity Fair and writers Anthony Bresnikan and Joanna Robinson. That duo then launched their attack on gamers, saying, "When Amazon released photos of its multicultural cast, even without character names or plot details, the studio endured a reflexive attack from trolls."
As they should. They took Tolkien's work, twisted it into abomination and aberration, and spat on everything the man stood for. That's disgusting. They should feel bad, but they don't because they're soulless husks of humanity, left to rot in their own greed.
The anonymous online kind. Then they cited a woman named Maria Rios Maldonado, who they described as a Tolkien scholar. However, she's anything but. Rather, she was a PhD.
There was an actual Tolkien scholar working for Amazon during the Rings of Power creation, and he got fired because he said none of this is accurate to the lore and you should change things. There we go. Was fun, but now they got someone who said, "Oh yeah, Tolkien. He thought of the orcs as being this complex, oppressed group of people that only want to live in peace, not rape and pillage and do the other things that orcs typically do." But, you know, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
PhD student at the University of Glasgow who is interested in ethics, feminist theory, and encountering the others in Tolkien's works.
Nice.
It's really funny how ethics for these people really just means bootlicking massive corporations. She also happened to be the Equality and Diversity Officer for the University of Glasgow Center for Fantasy and the Fantastic. I think I just lost IQ reading that right there. Anyways, continuing. Next, Vanity Fair used Maldonado to attack Tolkien fans and imply they're all racist for simply wanting a lore-accurate adaptation.
Oh, that wasn't an imply. That was just a blank statement.
She questioned, obviously there was going to be push and backlash, but the question is from whom? Who are these people that feel so threatened or disgusted by the idea that an elf is black or Latino or Asian?
From whom? When you want to be morally superior, but you're a literal piece of cardboard.
The tactic did not end up working for Rings of Power, as The Hollywood Reporter's Kim Masters reported in April 2023 that 63% of individuals who watched part of the show's premiere back in 2022 did not complete the show. She wrote, while Amazon, like other streamers, provides only limited data, and internally it held information even more.
This is like The Acolyte. You know who completed the show? People like me who just constantly made fun of it, of how stupid it was. The Acolyte was painful, but I'm not watching The Rings of Power. There are shows that I will watch, like The Acolyte, because they're going to be a hilariously sad performance of folk. But then there's something like The Rings of Power that I will literally not watch, because it's just going to be way too sad.
Closely than usual in the series. Sources confirmed that The Rings of Power had a 37% domestic completion.
But I do love engaging with The Rings of Power. Honestly, I do. Every Friday night tights, where there's The Rings of Power, I'm pretty excited, not gonna lie.
Right. For those outside the US, the completion rate was higher. Masters shared overseas, it reached 45%. A 50% completion rate would be solid, but not spectacular, according to insiders. And so this sort of tactic is also on...
The average for completion is something like 60% overall. It's pretty insane, honestly.
Likely to work with Assassin's Creed Shadows, as Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot already revealed that the game is unlikely to be the best-selling Assassin's Creed game of all time. Barclays' Nick Dempsey asked him, when you talk about it being the most ambitious, are you hoping for it to be the best-selling Assassin's Creed game? To which Guillemot replied, at this time we can say we expect Assassin's Creed to be among the high sellers of the company so far. Okay, so in other words, he dodged
In other words, that's the same as saying The Acolyte was Disney's best Star Wars series of 2024. Wow.
The question. The game's pre-orders do not look good either. Craig Skitstimus, aka Stuttering Craig, who owns and hosts the Side Scrollers podcast, shared that a retail insider informed him that the game is selling less than one copy per store. He says, "My insider told me that as of this morning at their nationwide big box chain, Assassin's Creed Shadows has less than 800 pre-orders combined for Xbox and PlayStation 5 company-wide." He added, "They have over 900
That's
stores.
amazing.
That's less than one pre-order per store. Yikes." On the PlayStation Store, the Ultimate Edition of the game, which costs around $130, is ranked 16th behind New World Eternum, Dragon Age the Veilguard, Silent
Yeah, and no one is gonna play New World Eternum. Dragon Age Veilguard is also gonna be a disaster.
Hill 2, Mortal Kombat 1 Chaos Reigns expansion, and Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, which, by the way, is a game that I'm excited for. Budokai Tenkaichi 3 was one of the best fighting games of all time. As for Assassin's Creed Shadows, the base game is even further down the list in the 21st place behind Disney epic Mickey Rebrushed, Throne and Liberty, and Sonic X Shadow Generations. The Gold Edition sits on the second page in 30th place. And they end by saying, "What do you make of this revelation that Hashimoto was a former Sweet Baby Inc. employee?" Yeah, like I said in the very intro, I just can't believe that Ubisoft is doing what they do and they think this is like the right move. They're one of the largest gaming companies in the entire world, and they could just put that power and money towards making good games, but apparently that's too much to ask. Instead, we see them come up with all kinds of excuses and contradictions, bunch of bots all over the internet attempting to defend them. We see it all over Twitter and YouTube comments, for example. Heck, I made a video a few days ago where I talked about how a video that I made talking about the terrible financial situation for Ubisoft had gotten an influx of bot comments. They were like spamming the comment section with periods. And then in between the period spam, there were other bots leaving comments attempting to defend Ubisoft and Star Wars Outlaws, but their comments sounded so nonsensical. And now it looks like the New York Times is collaborating with some ex-Sweet Baby Inc. employee to defend Ubisoft as well. This whole situation is just so bizarre. On top of all that, there was the old news where they came out with Skull and Bones trying to say this is like a quadruple A game, everybody. And then the whole like,
It is.
gamers need to get comfortable not owning their games. It's like,
If we don't own the games that we buy, you don't sell the games that you sell, which means piracy is 100% legal, and it's fine.
the majority of stuff that comes out from this company is just like the worst statements and the worst actions they could possibly do. It's like they have
Investors are currently asking for Ubisoft to be taken off the market, aka rebuying their shares and making the company private. Which is a desperation move because if a company does that, that means that they have to buy the shares, but it's a higher price than it's currently going because effectively everyone has lost any hopes that Ubisoft can actually, make it back to where it was, maybe even a year ago from the fall that it has taken. It is insane.
have an option. Do you want to do something good or do you want to do like the worst option possible? And they always pick the worst option. And to end with some comedy, let's go back to that whole Hashimoto Animal Crossing thing. Because Hashimoto made this tweet, says, "Hi, I wrote about Animal Crossing New Horizons and why acknowledging Japan's history of colonial rule is important to..."
Do you think she's an American? Do you think she lives in America? I am willing to put my money on she lives in America. That she has never even been to Japan, that she's someone who was just born in America and that's it. They have never even been to Japan.
To the discussion. No, it's literally not at all. It's a freaking Animal Crossing game. If you're taking it that seriously and getting all mad at it, something's seriously wrong with this person. And they end by saying,
There's typically something always wrong with these people. It's just a way of life. It is how it was meant to be. And at least it's enjoyable to see their downfall. Anyway, that was pretty good. Hero, hey, 10 out of 10. Bye!